Well, hey there, friends. Here I am. I'm on time, right on time. So, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. So I just got my connections all fixed up, and I got a fast computer, and I thought I would try to do something kind of spontaneously, since lately I've been just bogged down in classwork. And yeah, if you look at my channel, just about all you see anymore are my videos for my genetics course. So yeah, I mean that's fine. That's fine. I like teaching genetics, but it's not getting into the controversial stuff. You know, the stuff that gets you clicks. Nothing I do in genetics is getting people excited about watching my videos, and that's okay. Again, I don't mind working away at these things. So what I thought I'd do is, since I got everything working, I just come on here and pick a video kind of semi-randomly and talk about a creationist. All right, so I haven't seen this video yet. All I know is, okay, it's short. It's like 12 minutes long, and that's what I wanted, because I don't want to spend hours and hours on this. Uh, it claims to be the first in a series on intelligent design, the basics of intelligent design, which could be interesting. Yeah, I can only guess what he's going to say, but I'm pretty sure it'll be something stupid. Or maybe he's going to have a conversion right in the middle of this and tell us, oh no, yeah, this evolution stuff seems to make a lot of sense. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start playing this goofy video, and I will probably interrupt it at many points, and we'll see how it goes. And let's find out what he's going to tell us all about.
Did you know that Charles Darwin knew about the key issue in his theory that doesn't add up? Did you know that he was troubled by the fact that an entire field of scientific study opposes the key tenets of evolution? Yes, he sure was, and although he was hoping that future discoveries would fix his problem, the evidence that emerged shattered that hope into 1,000 pieces.
Oh no. Yeah, he found the weakness, the one weakness in all of evolution, and he's going to tell us about it. I wonder what it is. So an entire field of scientific study has shattered the idea of evolution. Now I want to know what it is.
Join me for this video to learn why Darwin was spot on in his doubts and find out what this means for the theory of evolution. Hi, my name is Lucas, and this is...
Okay, hi Lucas. Anyway, yeah, no, Darwin was famously very open about his doubts. He had absolutely no problem with raising questions and suggesting things that might be wrong with his theory, and challenging people to get out and study them. And, you know, prove me wrong was basically his mantra. So this is not surprising.
Apologetics channel Deflate, which challenges skeptics, strengthens believers, and creates a space for awesome discussions about God.
Oh, wait a minute. Now, you know, I grabbed this because I thought it was going to talk about intelligent design. And as we all know, intelligent design creationism never worries about God. Yeah, that's not their thing. Right? Yeah, I'm being sarcastic. So it's an apologetics channel. I am not surprised. It seems like most of the opposition to the theory of evolution is coming from Christian and Muslim apologists. So no, I'm not going to buy it. Okay, well, he's got to tell us what the big objection to evolution is.
With this video, I'm launching a new series that will introduce you into the basics of intelligent design and of critical thinking about evolution.
Haha, yeah, okay. Yeah, that's what drew me in, actually, is that it's apparently the start of a series. and he's going to teach us about critical thinking, about evolution. Oh, right. I don't quite buy it. I will say though that he has a very pleasant accent. He's kind of nice to listen to. I don't know is he German or Scandinavian of some sort? Anyway, so that part's fine. We haven't yet gotten to the content. He just made a lot of promises about where he's going to go with this.
Check out the video description and pinned comment to find out more. Let's get started. Darwin's hypothesis begins with the craft of pigeon breeding. He observed that by carefully selecting from within a given set of pigeons, specific pigeons with certain characteristics, breeders are able to create a new set of pigeons.
If he says, but they're still only pigeons, I'll be very unhappy with him. But so far he's correct. Yes, Darwin talked a lot about pigeons. Perfectly legitimate. I hope he's not going to tell me that pigeon breeding is the great field of science that disproves Darwin. Better not. That would be silly, but I'm sure he's got something even sillier.
Depending on the goal and selection of the breeder, the newly bred set of pigeons would differ in overall size, color, or size of wings from the original set. Based on that, Darwin suggested that nature was vested with the same creative powers as the breeder. Namely, it would select those features in animals that are useful in the struggle for survival.
Okay, wait a minute. Now, so far, this is okay. That was Darwin's argument. He based it a lot on studying domesticated animals, studying pigeons, but we're also going to have to talk about his observations in nature of things like the Galapagos Islands and all of South America. Anyway, so yeah, this is so far he's not saying anything too stupid yet.
This is why he said that I have called this principle by which each slight variation, if useful, is preserved by the term natural selection in order to mark its relation to man's power of selection. And so Darwin's hypothesis in the origin of species was essentially this. Starting from one common ancestor, all life forms evolved slowly and gradually over long periods of time as random mutation would bring up new traits from...
Well, okay, I was with him there, but Darwin didn't talk about mutations. The whole idea of mutations doesn't come along for a while. And Darwin wouldn't have brought it up because he didn't have any kind of a idea about an accurate theory of genetics, of inheritance. So he's jumping the gun a little bit here.
Which natural selection would preserve or select the ones that are useful for survival. Accordingly, his theory predicted that the gradual development of species would be reflected in the geological record with an endless array of transitional fossilized animal forms, which would allow paleontologists and biologists to trace the tiny steps biological organisms took in evolving from one species into the next.
Wait a minute, I'm beginning to have trepidations here. He said that Darwin would expect that we'd find a fossil record, that paleontologists would dig up a fossil record that recorded all of the incremental steps that lead to the evolution of a species. No, he didn't. Is this going to be his big argument? Because so far it's kind of ahistorical. Okay, well let's let him dig the hole a little deeper.
Yet at the same time, when he published The Origin of Species in 1859, paleontologists had bad news for him. The fossil record showed very clearly that new species appear suddenly and abruptly and not by evolving in small step-by-step fashion over long periods of time.
Oh, wait a minute. No, this is wrong. No, the geologists and paleontologists were quite aware of the limitations of the fossil record. So, they knew that it was not very complete. So this doesn't make any sense. That's not the argument against evolution that most of them made.
For this reason, the most prominent paleontologists at Darwin's time rejected.
Oh, wait a minute. I gotta step back here. No, that wasn't the reason that, for instance, Adam Sedgwick rejected it. Yeah, Adam Sedgwick was well-known and well-respected geologist at the time. And Sedgwick did oppose the theory of evolution. He didn't think it was valid. He thought it was a pretty bad idea. And the reason wasn't because we were missing fossils or something. I'm going to, give me a moment. I want to look this up. Let me just type this out. I know I've got a source here that will tell us what Sedgwick's actual objection was. Hold on, I'm getting there. Okay, yeah, here's the Victorian Web. They had a good article on him. Let me browse down here. Yeah, so Sedgwick had a long history of opposing evolutionary ideas. He did not like them at all. And what the reason he rejected Darwin's theory was because he thought it was too secular and materialistic. Let me see. Okay, here for instance, this I will throw a link to this down below when I'm done. But it's an article about Sedgwick and his opposition to evolution. And he wrote a letter to Darwin in 1859, actually. And he opposed it after he opposed another book called The Vestiges, which was published 15 years earlier, but for the same reason. So let me just read you what Adam Sedgwick's argument was. He says, "This view of nature you have stated admirably, though admitted by all naturalists and denied by no one of common sense." Yeah, so he's basically saying the observations you have pulled together are spot on. You are correct. He continues, "We all admit development is a fact of history, but how came it about? Here, in language, and still more in logic, we are point blank at issue. And here's the gist of it. Get ready for this. There is a moral or metaphysical part of nature as well as physical. A man who denies this is deep in the mire of folly. 'Tis the crown and glory of organic science that it does through final cause link material to moral. You have ignored this link, and if I do not mistake your meaning, you have done your best in one or two pregnant cases to break it. Were it possible, which thank God it is not, to break it, humanity, in my mind, would suffer a damage that might brutalize it and sink the human race into a lower grade of degradation than any into which it has fallen since its written records in all of its history." Okay, you get the idea that what Sedgwick is objecting to is not based on fossils or the lack thereof. His primary concern is the morality of this, that he's a very religious Anglican kind of guy, and he was very concerned that this was going to lead to all kinds of horrible immoralities. So yeah, we're already going off the reservation here. This is not correct. Let me take. Oh, I see some comments coming in. Yeah, it says, so I'm not going to try to pronounce that name, Platolobium. Anyway, he had guided young Charles Darwin in his early study of geology and continued to be on friendly terms. Sedgwick was an opponent of Darwin's theory of evolution by means of natural selection. Yeah, everyone who studies the history of evolution knows this. So, yeah. Oh, yes, he did have some sexist remarks. So he quotes him. Adam Sedgwick, strongly opposed the admission of women to the University of Cambridge in one conversation, describing aspiring female students as nasty, forward minxes. Oh, yeah. There was something else in this Victorian Web article. Oh, yeah. So another thing that he wrote about, I think this was in reference to Chambers and the Vestiges of the Natural History of Creation, which was before Darwin. So he said, again, reading through a very extensive, is the reading, though very extensive, is very shallow, and the author perpetually shoots ahead of his facts and leaps to a conclusion. This mistake was women's, capital W, from the first. Yeah, so a very old school sort of religious guy. Okay, so anyway, yeah, so he's already getting things wrong. How annoying. Okay, let's see how much deeper he digs the hole.
Paleontologists at Darwin's time rejected his theory. The issue was not that there were some minor inconsistencies here and there between Darwin's theory and the fossil record. No, it was that the science...
Okay, first of all, that part is correct, because they weren't objecting on the basis of an already known to be extremely spotty fossil record. Yeah, nobody's going to... That's why it's peculiar. He just admitted that.
Of paleontology as a whole and everything paleontologists knew presented a picture that was diametrically opposed to the one Darwin tried to paint.
Again, no, that's not true. People like Sedgwick read it and they had to agree. Yeah, that this fits with what we observe, this fits with the fossil record, this fits with what we know about domesticated animals. It's made him uncomfortable because it was hard to argue against for that reason. But he was quite convinced that this was an amoral sort of conclusion. Darwin left out morality. Yeah, so that's just nonsense so far.
Darwin himself was painstakingly aware of that, and he expressed his discomfort repeatedly in his book, like here, for example.
Okay, I'll get to this in a minute, but yeah, it's true. This is one of Darwin's rhetorical tricks. Yeah, if you read the Origin, he is often bringing up the objections to his own theory. This is a perfectly legitimate thing. And he's doing it as a clever strategy because, I've already thought of your objection and here's my answer to it. And then he explains what was wrong with it all.
As according to the theory of natural selection, an interminable number of intermediate forms must have existed. Why is not every geological formation charged with such links?
Okay, yes, this is true. Let me just back it up there to that quote. This is an actual quote from Darwin's Origin. Oh, you know what? I'm gonna give me a moment. I am going to pull this up too. Okay, I've got a link to this already. This is Project Gutenberg is really handy this way. So it's got Darwin's Origin on there, and it makes it searchable. So let me see here. Okay, I'm on the title page, or no, the index for the Origin of Species, and I browse through here. Oh yes, he's got a whole chapter on this. Chapter 9 on the imperfection of the geological record. Yeah, so this guy is quite right. Darwin's going to bring it up himself. He is going to discuss this problem in his big book. All right. So let's see. What more is he going to say about all this?
Links. Or here, the abrupt manner in which whole groups of species suddenly appear in certain formations has been urged by several paleontologists as a fatal objection to the belief in the transmutation of species. If numerous species have really started into life all at once, the fact...
Okay, again, this is typical creationist quote mining, because like I said, throughout the book, he keeps bringing up these objections. Darwin brings up these objections. And what creationists love to do is pluck out those objections and then recite them as if it's earth-shaking, as if they have thought of a way to disprove the theory of evolution when Darwin himself was bringing this up. So you might ask yourself, if this problem were true, it would be fatal to his theory. Why is he writing a whole book about his theory? It's because the thing he's bringing up as an objection has not been demonstrated. So it's pretty silly to do this. Okay, so let me go to chapter 9 here. And let me bring this up. And oh, I got to tell you, my computer is so snappy now that I've patched a few things up. So here it is. Let's see. Oh, okay. So here's I'm trying to find that specific quote. Here it is. Okay, yes. So he says, as on the theory of natural selection, etc. And then he says, he gives the answer in the second half of the paragraph. Okay. He says, with respect to existing forms, we should remember that we have no right to expect, excepting in rare cases, to discover directly connecting links between them, but only between each and some extinct and supplanted form, even on a wide area, which has during a long period remained continuous, and in which the climate and other conditions of life change insensibly in going from a district occupied by one species into another district, etc. Yeah, it's beautiful writing, but it's very wordy. I'm sorry. Let's see. Let this guy yammer on a little longer.
Fact would be fatal to the theory. And what was Darwin's response? I can answer these questions and objections only on the supposition that the geological record is far more imperfect than most geologists believe. Only a small portion of the world has been
Okay, yeah, so how convenient. It's right here. I got it right in front of me. So yeah, Darwin wrote, I can answer these questions and grave objections only in the supposition that the geological record is far more imperfect than most geologists believe. It cannot be objected that there has not been time sufficient for any amount of organic change. For the lapse of time has been so great as to be utterly inappreciable by the human intellect. So that's his first answer. The Earth is really old. We got to recognize that. So it's hard to appreciate how flawed the fossil record has got to be. So he goes on, the number of specimens in all our museums is absolutely as nothing compared with the countless generations of countless species which certainly have existed. We should not be able to recognize a species as the parent of any one or more species if we were to examine them ever so closely, unless we likewise possess many of the intermediate links between their past or parent and present state. This is one I recall. Let me go down just a little further. Oh yeah, punctuated equilibrium is in here. So he says local varieties will not spread into other and distant regions until they are considerably modified and improved. And when they do spread, if discovered in a geological formation, they will appear as if suddenly created there and will be simply classed as a new species. Most formations have been intermittent in their accumulation and their duration. I'm inclined to believe it has been shorter than the average duration of specific forms. Successive formations are separated from each other by enormous blank intervals of time. For fossiliferous formations, thick enough to resist future degradation can be accumulated only where much sediment is deposited on the subsiding bed of the sea. So yeah, Darwin already answered this. And this bozo is just kind of ignoring it. It's kind of annoying. Yeah. All right. Oh yes, comment in the chat here. Yeah, ellipses. Whenever you see ellipses, you just skip. Yeah, that means they probably skipped a paragraph or pages that raise objections to their whole complaint. So yeah, this is kind of bogus here.
Logically explored. So Darwin asserted that paleontologists simply hadn't unearthed yet the interminable number of intermediate forms his theory predicted to exist. hoping that the future of paleontology would change that and vindicate him.
No. This guy is so bad. No, he apparently doesn't know how to read. No, Darwin does not say that anywhere. He doesn't say, I hope sometime in the future that I will be vindicated by the discovery. No, he goes on at length in this chapter to explain, no, you're not going to find them. Because, the span of an organism's life is so short compared to geological time that there's going to be immense gaps all over the place. So he's not saying paleontology will eventually get all of these fossils. Quite the opposite. He's arguing paleontology will never find all of these fossils. They don't exist. They couldn't exist. Okay, so...
In other words, he was essentially making an argument from silence and explained away the absence of evidence instead of explaining the evidence scientists were actually facing.
Okay, stop right there, because that's just so ironic. Here's an intelligent design creationist, and he's saying that the evolutionist is explaining away the absence of things as evidence for his theory. No, he's not. The rest of the book is all this evidence for evolution. But it's ironic because this is the intelligent design strategy. Notice that this guy is making this video to complain about Darwin, a 19th century scientist. He is not offering up any positive explanations of his own. He is in particular not offering up any evidence for this process that he hasn't even explained of intelligent design. So, what are we? Oh, yeah. Okay. Let's listen.
Is the fact of new animal forms showing up suddenly and abruptly in the fossil record rather than gradually.
But Darwin just explained that. That stuff he quoted, that if he'd read a couple more sentences down, it would have explained exactly why he would expect new species to appear suddenly in the fossil record, because we don't have a continuous record. Okay.
Had you lived at the time of Darwin and were excited about his theory, you might have joined him in hoping that those innumerable intermediate forms in the fossil record would be unearthed later on.
Again, no, that's not the argument. Okay. That was not the argument then. It is not the argument now. The only people who make this kind of claim are creationists. Yeah, because we really don't expect to ever find a complete continuous series of individuals representing the evolution of a species. It's just physically unlikely to the point of impossibility.
Have these hopes come true? Nope. On the
We didn't have those hopes, so that's why they didn't come
contrary, the fossil evidence that has surfaced has made Darwin's problem much more severe, as we're about to see.
Anyone want to take any bets on whether we're about to see that? No, because, yeah, we're not going to see that evidence that he's going to claim. So, yes, Darwin says, hey, we observe in the fossil record species appearing suddenly for these various reasons. The unlikelihood of individuals being preserved, being fossilized properly, that the mechanism of speciation, poorly understood as it was at the time, would involve things like migration. So, if you evolved in Central Africa and then your first fossils were discovered in Northern Africa, you miss all the stuff that happened in between. So Darwin was quite clear about this. Like I said, he sort of foresaw this idea of punctuated equilibrium, and it's all in there.
In the year 1909, Charles Doolittle Walcott, then director of the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., discovered the Burgess shale in British Columbia, Canada, which until today is considered one of the most important finds in the history of paleontology.
Okay, he's right so far. Yeah, it is important. Let me see. I have some paperweights I keep in my office. So here, for instance, this here is, let me get it where you can see it. This is one's kind of fragmentary. I've got a better one in my office at work. But this is a piece of slate of shale from from Delta, Utah. So, and it's got trilobites embedded in. Isn't that cool? So yeah, you got to keep these around so you can occasionally caress 350 million years of evolutionary history, you know. Anyway, so yeah, okay. Burgess shale, very important.
Walcott's team collected more than 65,000 animal fossils, many of which were remarkably well preserved, belonging to a variety of different phyla.
Okay, yes. Some of those phyla being kind of ambiguous about exactly who they were, but yeah, I agree. We do have some specimens from Burgess shale in British Columbia. There's also a site in China that's pretty good for Cambrian fossils. We keep finding these, and I should mention, this is one of the things you should take as supporting Darwin's explanation, because what we've got is just these scattered Lagerstätte of different fossils in different places. British Columbia, China, there's a few other places where they've been discovered, but they're scattered all over the world. So we got this little tiny geological slice of a little tiny slice of time. And no, you're not going to see a continuous fossil record in that kind of situation. Okay.
Now, here's an important term you want to wrap your head around. Phyla. What is that? Borrowing Stephen Meyer's definition.
Whoa, okay. Yeah, I'm feeling nauseous now. Anytime you mention Stephen Meyer, why is this guy going to Stephen Meyer? Why not go to a credible author like Valentine, who actually knows quite a bit about this subject? Why are you bringing in this clown? Okay, but we'll let him define phylum for us.
The term phyla, singular phylum, refers to divisions in the biological classification system. The phyla constitute the highest or widest categories of biological classification in the animal kingdom, with each exhibiting a unique architecture, organizational blueprint, or structure.
All right. Yeah, that's not as bad as I feared it would be. Okay, but yeah, phyla are distinguished on the basis of this thing called a body plan, that they're significantly different from each other. So yeah, for instance, chordates, we have a notochord that develops into a spinal cord and all that kind of good stuff. Arthropods, no, they don't have a notochord. Lots of key differences like that. However, I will add that one of the big discoveries of the Evo-Devo era is when we started looking at molecules, we started looking at the genes involved in the formation of these body plans, we start discovering that they're all linked, that they're all using similar genes in somewhat similar ways to organize their body plans. So this is kind of a moot argument at this point. You can't simply say, well, they're different phyla, so they were independently created, like Meyer would like you to believe.
Body plans. Here are 3 examples of 3 different phyla. The phylum of the arthropods includes all insects, all spiders.
Yay. Okay, you mentioned spiders, but I have to point out, this is a very important point, is yeah, insects and spiders all belong to the same phylum. But insects and spiders are remarkably different from each other. They share common features, like the exoskeleton, the segmented body plan, all that kind of cool stuff. but they also have distinctive differences. And so when you say phylum, you're actually talking about a grab bag of highly divergent forms that just share an ancestral body plan. That's it. But every other details is radically different.
All types of crabs, lobster, as well as animals such as the trilobite.
Right. So I don't quite get where he's going with this, because he is pointing out how important the concept of the phylum is. And then he's shown us a bunch of examples, insects, spiders, crustaceans, trilobites, all these things fit into a single phylum, but they are very divergent from each other. So, okay, well, we'll just have to see where he goes with this.
The phylum of the Cnidarians includes corals, jellyfish, and sea anemones, and the phylum of the chordates includes, among other animals, all birds, all reptiles, all fish, and all mammals.
Okay. Are you like me wondering where he's going with this? Because this is all accepted by evolutionary biologists everywhere. He's got to bring up some objection to evolutionary theory, doesn't he?
Each of these phyla, all the animals, as different as they may look from each other, are united by their organizational structure, which is also the very thing that allows us to differentiate between all the phyla. The animal kingdom is usually organized into 35 different phyla, and the known fossil record features animals representing about 27 of those 35 phyla. Of the 27 phyla featured in the fossil record, 20 make their first and sudden appearance within one single geological time period called the Cambrian era, without evidence of fossilized forms in older strata, which could be considered their evolutionary precursors.
Oh, well, yes, no, this is not quite true. The thing is that in the Cambrian era, that's when we start to see animals evolving hard body parts, exoskeletons, and rigid bits and pieces that can fossilize well. So that's why they appear suddenly in the fossil record in the Cambrian. Is the Precambrian, they were all gooey, jelly-like worms and things that just that do not fossilize well. So that's the explanation for this sudden origin. I mean, for example, chordates and arthropods shared a common ancestor roughly 700 million years ago. So there was, and then we get the first fossils roughly 500 million years ago. So there's 200 million years of evolution that occurred that diversified these different forms to the point where they have these different body plans, and then they start forming these sclerotized skeletons and start becoming visible in the fossil record. So they didn't suddenly appear in the Cambrian, well, except to our eyes, that seems the way, because they didn't fossilize well before. But we've got evidence, molecular evidence. We've got the small shelly fossils that were Precambrian. We got the Ediacaran forms. We got all this molecular evidence that says, they evolved over a longer period of time, gradually, like Darwin would have said.
The Cambrian era is generally held to span from around 540 million years ago to around 490 million years ago. However, the time window in which the 20 Cambrian phyla show up is far smaller and has been calculated to cover no more than 10 million.
All right. These are the weirdest objections. Maybe I've been listening too much of the young Earth creationists, but 10 million years is a long time, a really, really long time. Figure humans, we separated from a primate ancestor, chimpanzees and humans separated roughly 6 million years ago. So what's the problem here? 10 million years is a long time. And like I said, This is just when the divergence becomes apparent because you get good fossils. It's actually a period of, probably 200 million years over which these different phyla were differentiating in ways that were not quite visible. All we have is trace fossils and fragments and a few impressions. That's it.
Years. In fact, an MIT geochronologist has calculated that at least 16 completely new phyla appear within no more than 6 million.
That word appear is doing so much hard work here. Yeah, I wish he would cite some of his sources so I could look these up. But yeah, that this does not surprise me that the fossil beds that we have from the Cambrian are scattered, and you don't really find, you don't find the whole broad range. You don't have that whole 540 to 490 million years encapsulated in a single simple place. So it makes it kind of difficult to track. So yeah, I'm not surprised that somebody said, when I look at the literature, I can find these dates for certain phyla, and using those, it looks like, hey, we have this emergent phylum appearing over a span of whatever he's saying, less than 10 million years. So what? It's like a complete misunderstanding of how the fossil record works.
Years of the Cambrian era. 16 fundamentally different body plans within 6 million years.
Again, let me emphasize, no, that's when they become visible in the fossil record. But they're much older than that. They were separating for much longer than that. He's only talking about the fossil record, which is part of the problem here. To get the full idea, you have to look at the molecular evidence nowadays. I guess that's one of the reasons he's focusing on Darwin, because Darwin didn't have molecules to think about.
That's a lot of anatomical innovation within a mere blink of an eye on an evolutionary time.
Wait a minute. Okay, at the minimum, he's saying 6 million years. 6 million years now is a blink of an eye. It might be, kind of a slow blink to a geologist, but biologically, no, this is nonsense.
Time scale. In fact, if we compress the history of life on Earth, which began around 3.5 billion years ago, into a 24-hour day, those 6 million years would make up no more than 75 seconds.
How long would the history of human life on Earth be? Yeah, even less, much shorter. 200,000 years. We're talking just a few seconds here. So what's the relevance? Why do we care?
Within this tiny time window of 6 million years, the Trilobite, that icon of paleontology, shows up, a creature with a rather complex body plan.
Okay, yeah, I just noticed flying by in the comments. Callisto says, as a fossil collector, I can report that most fossils suck. Yes, so like my example here, like I said, I've just got it here as a paperweight. It's a crappy fossil. It's fragmentary. It's broken up in there. We spent quite a bit of time on those fossil beds in Delta. It was great fun. You keep kicking up this shale and you split it with a rock hammer, and you just find fossils all over the place. But most of them are crap. They're damaged and broken, and you go the whole day and you come home with a dozen maybe that are in pretty good shape, and then you have to clean them up and everything. So, yeah.
Is divided into 3 parts: a head, chest, and tail. It's got 3 longitudinal lobes across the head, while the chest and tail consist.
Let me make a prediction here. So he's starting to talk about how this is a sophisticated animal. It's fairly complex, and it appeared suddenly in the fossil record. But again, it has a long history. So this is an objection without meaning, and it's remarkably annoying what he's doing here. Okay, so it's complex. This is another one of the big intelligent design arguments. if things are complex, they could not have evolved. And I bet you that's where he's going.
Of around 30 segments. However, probably the most impressive anatomical fact about trilobites are their lens-focusing compound eyes, which allow for a 360-degree field of vision. That's a brief sketch of the
All right, yeah. Yeah, they have these neat eyes. They use calcite crystals, some of them use calcite crystals and everything, and they're different from other animal eyes, but eyes have evolved. I saw one estimate where that argued that the eye itself has functionally evolved at least 20 times over evolutionary history. So this is not a shocking result that trilobites evolved an innovative, novel kind of eye during the Cambrian. I just don't get the objection here, except for the fact that intelligent design creationists reflexively treat complexity as a default argument for their belief system.
Most of us probably associate with the word fossil, and it's this animal that arguably exemplifies the paleontological challenge to evolution best. For if Darwin's theory...
You know, a while back I made a video and I recommended a bunch of books about this subject, and one of them was Richard Fortey's Trilobite, and I'll just recommend that. Richard Fortey is not a creationist. He probably knows as much about trilobites as anyone on the planet, and he doesn't see this as this radical slam dunk for creationism that this guy seems to think it is.
Holds true, how did complex animal forms such as the trilobite show up suddenly within a mere 6 million years?
Okay, again, a mere 6 million years. But that's after hundreds of millions of years of molecular evolution and divergence from other forms. Eyes are pretty ancient, so yeah, okay.
With zero evidence of a precursor from which it supposes...
No, there's not zero evidence. I mentioned the small shelly fossils. There's a rich record of trace fossils. You know, trace fossils are just the trackways and the burrows that they made of ancient worm-like things. So this is not a valid argument he's making.
Evolved. Walcott's phenomenal find in the Burgess shale in 1909 was a major key that helped paleontologists gain such a detailed understanding of how animals showed up on the stage of life. But it's important to point out that in the 100 plus years that have passed since then, paleontologists have consistently encountered the exact same picture around the world when making new discoveries. A wide variety of animals whose fundamental body plans are...
Whoa. Oh, notice. He goes from body plans appearing in the Cambrian to talking about humans, gorillas, dire wolves, and big cats. None of these were present in the Cambrian, all right? None. These are forms that evolved in what, the last less than 60 million years. Okay, so notice the sneaky thing he did here. There was the business with the ellipses earlier on, and at this point now he's just throwing together in a lump all the animal diversity that's existed for the last 500 million years so that he can illustrate the Cambrian with a picture of a big cat. Yeah.
Different from one another as that of a jellyfish and a dragonfly make their sudden appearance all at once within a tiny window of...
Wait, I gotta go back here. Oh, I lost it. Where was I? I hit this silly thing and I shot far ahead. There we go. Okay. Jellyfish
and a dragonfly.
Dragonflies were not present in the Cambrian either. Yeah, when did winged insects appear? That was in the Devonian, so significantly later than... So again, he's pulling this trick to show us a modern form and claim that evolutionary biologists believe this evolved in the Cambrian. And that was just too quick. Yeah, we're talking a few 100 million years after the Cambrian.
Make their sudden appearance all at once within a tiny window of time that briefly opened around 540 million years ago. This phenomenon has come to be referred to as the Cambrian explosion. Remember that Darwin
A really slow explosion.
admitted that the abrupt manner in which whole groups of species suddenly appear in certain geological formations was a potentially fatal objection to his entire theory. Also remember
Okay, yes, and we've already addressed that. Yeah, that's Darwin saying, yes, it would be potentially fatal to my theory if you could demonstrate that a species emerged wholly formed all at once in the blink of an eye. There's your challenge, intelligent design creationists. Instead of just carping at Darwin, show us that. Show us a species that evolves abruptly and suddenly. Not that it was missing from the fossil record for a long period of time. That's not relevant. That doesn't tell me anything.
that he could answer these questions and objections only on the supposition that the geological record is far more imperfect than most geologists believe, as he asserted that only
There's that ellipsis again. Oh man, I really don't trust these guys when they do that. Let me see here. Can I find it again? Let me just search for only on the. Oh man, there we go. Yeah, that's a big chunky long paragraph. So he points this out. Where's the bit about small portion? Okay, so that's down around near the end of the paragraph. But anyway, what Darwin does is he brings up this objection, and then he explains why it is valid to regard the fossil record as being inadequate, missing huge chunks of information.
a small portion of the world has been geologically explored. But if the
part of the
Darwinian
objection.
argument from silence was already
It's not an argument from silence. Yeah, again, this is another thing they do. The creationists of all stripes, I mean, young earth creationists as well as these guys, is they say, oh, it's all an argument from silence, because they ignore all the positive evidence. They ignore all the evidence of change in species over time. So that's what that's the game he's playing here.
problematic back in 1859, it has become utterly untenable today.
Really, utterly untenable. I take it that means that paleontologists all over the world are abandoning evolutionary theory en masse, right?
The science of paleontology has, like any other scientific discipline, made huge leaps in the past century, and there is no escaping the fact that what we're confronted with when we look at the fossil record is an explosion of animal forms within virtually no time at all.
Whoa. No, again, go talk to a paleontologist, right? They're going to be pretty strongly pro-evolution. Yeah, it'd be very hard to find a paleontologist who's anti-evolution, who favors creation. It just doesn't work that way. And so you ought to be asking yourself, if this clown is trying to make an argument from the paleontological evidence, how does he explain why paleontologists haven't noticed? They're smart people. They're out there gathering evidence. Okay, and then also he says, okay, you have to explain how all these forms are evolved in a very short time. Yet he has shown us examples of forms that evolved over hundreds of millions of years. Cats did not appear in the Cambrian, right? Neither did dragonflies. So he has just sort of compressed all of life on Earth into this narrow window of time, unethically and inappropriately.
While the interminable number of intermediate forms with which every geological formation is supposed to be charged,
again, I got to tell you, just go read the book. You pulled out a sentence, and then where Darwin asks a question, why is not every geological formation charged with such links? And Darwin explains why at length. There's an entire chapter on just this one little problem.
continue to be conspicuously absent. Yet, that's not even the half of it when you consider that some of the fossils that have been discovered after Darwin by Walcott and others exhibit body plans that...
Whoa, look at those cats. Oh, wow, Cambrian cats now. How many of those do you think Walcott dug up in the Burgess shale? Why is he showing us this? He's trying to mislead his listeners. He's trying to tell them, yeah, all these forms emerge abruptly in the blink of an eye in the Cambrian. But no, this is something that emerged 450 million years later.
Weren't even known when The Origin of Species was published. This means that while Darwin had every reason to be troubled by the fact that the fossil record was hanging like a Damocles sword over his theory, far weightier reasons for even greater Darwinian anxiety have now been added.
No, that's backwards. Yeah, because the fossil record is spotty, but these new forms have been discovered spanning the last 500 million years, and they all fit into this puzzle of what we call Darwinian evolution. It's just none of these new forms are arguments against evolution; they're arguments for. So what are you talking about?
And here is why. It's not just that the interminable number of intermediate forms of the animals known to Darwin have not been found. Instead, what has been found are entirely new animal forms exhibiting body plans and anatomical structures which Darwin didn't even know to exist, and they too appear suddenly and without any precursory form.
Okay. Again, we have found new fossil organisms. We still are. They're being dug up all the time. But they fit into the architecture of evolution. We can find entirely new animal species, for instance, but we also find intermediate forms. That there's a whole succession of forms that bridge evolutionary history. There's gaps in between, but they exist. I'm on 23andMe. I joined this a long time ago, and one of the features they have, which is sometimes a little annoying, is they keep popping up with new DNA relatives. As more and more people sign up and they sequence their genomes and they compare it to the existing data for extant users, and they keep popping up with these new forms, and like they find fourth cousins. They can identify those. And yet, if you asked either of us, either myself or the fourth cousin, what our great-great-great-grandparent was like, we wouldn't know. We'd have no idea. We don't know who they are. There's a tenuous genetic link that ties us together. The fact that we don't have a continuous record of every ancestor who bridges the gaps between me and these distant cousins does not mean that they didn't exist. It means that, Yeah, we didn't have all my ancestors stuffed and mounted as they died, so that I could show them off to everyone.
Forms preceding them in the fossil record. In other words, the very problem whose lethal potential Darwin admitted to has not just not been solved by paleontology as Darwin had hoped. Instead, it has become multiple times more serious as the modern science of paleontology presents us with a picture that consistently shows the exact opposite of what one would expect with the Darwinian hypothesis.
Do I need to say this again? That Darwin's book explains that this is exactly what we would see. That there'd be huge gaps between intermediate forms. That's what he predicted. That's what he had seen. And that's what paleontology has demonstrated over and over again. Finding that life is complex and that there's these hugely diverse forms that all are related to each other. Again, we can determine this by morphological and molecular evidence as well. They're all related to each other. That's the key point we should be taking away from Darwin.
Of gradual change over time. Sure, ever since the extent of the Cambrian explosion was laid bare by Walcott's phenomenal discovery, Darwinists have tried to come up with hypotheses that would reconcile the stubborn fact of paleontology with evolutionary theory.
But you know, it's like we're talking two different languages. It's like he's off on planet Mars or something, where he's got these misconceptions about what paleontologists and evolutionary biologists and molecular biologists and all these people have said about evolution. And he says, oh, well, you don't agree with my understanding of evolution, which is wrong. Therefore, evolution is wrong. It's exactly backwards. You don't understand evolutionary theory. And your incomprehension is not an argument against evolutionary theory.
None of them work, however, because the facts are what they are, and trying to reconcile the fossil record with evolution is to force a square peg into a round hole.
Once again, the theory of evolution has a set of propositions, some of which were brought up by Charles Darwin, and the paleontological record fits with our expectation of what we expect to see. And it's not just silence. Yeah, there's huge gaps in the fossil record, but we also have positive evidence of a pattern of ongoing change in life on Earth over millions and billions of years. That's evolutionary theory. Yeah.
Nevertheless, in my next video I will look at some of these Darwinian rescue attempts, so make sure you subscribe, and in the meantime watch this video over here in which I show why evolution, if it were true, cannot possibly be used as an argument against God.
Wait a minute. Okay. Well, first of all, I should apologize. It looks like this because I'm not playing this on YouTube. I didn't want to worry about commercials popping up and crap like that, so I downloaded it. That's why you just see that blank "watch this" space there. If you see it on YouTube, there is a video shown here, which I haven't looked at. I also haven't subscribed to his channel. Surprise, surprise. But yeah, he's terrible. He doesn't understand anything. Again, nice accent, sure, but stupid words coming out with a nice, polite accent.
Thanks for watching, and see you over there.
No, you won't see me there. Okay. Well, what do I say to this? Let me zoom in a little bit so you can see me. Let me take a look at your comments. What have you guys been saying behind my back? Oh man, so many comments. Yeah, I see you're noting a lot. The argument by mere assertion. Yeah, that's in there. He's thinking that because chordates appeared during the Cambrian, there were cats. Right. That's his profound misconception there. Or actually, maybe he understands this perfectly well, that there were no cats in the Cambrian, but he will make a video that honestly presents it as if cats appeared back in the Cambrian. Okay. Oh, right. Donald mentions it's even worse than Darwin, who he didn't know about plate tectonics, which wipes out evidence. He did speculate about that possibility, but also in The Origin, he writes about the idea that the ocean beds have been unchanged, that there's been continents and oceans, and they haven't, he's not aware that they could have changed. But he does recognize that things like volcanic activity and erosion could have changed what would appear on the continents, and also suggested maybe there's things out in the ocean that you would find. So, yeah, Darwin didn't know about plate tectonics. There was so much that Darwin did not know. Let's use that as an excuse to hate on evolutionary theory. Yeah. Oh yeah, okay, I'm sorry. That annoying, needless background music on the creationist clip again. Yeah, it's got a swell at the end so that you know you will soon be released from church. Oh, you've been talking about my hair. Yeah, it's looking good, isn't it? I'm not doing anything fancy. It's just graying gently, which adds nice highlights to it. The argument from an old book, yeah. Oh yeah. Also, he announced that in his future videos he's going to explain why you couldn't use evolution to argue against God, but you can. Well, not exactly. You can. You can't argue against. You can't argue against a nebulous, sort of poorly defined God. Sure, that could be the case. But you can most definitely argue against the God of the Book of Genesis. You have to treat the Book of Genesis as a metaphor. It's the only way it works. Yeah, the two creation explanations in the Book of Genesis are mutually contradictory. So yeah, you have to do that. Oh yeah, no, Callisto mentions creationists act like all science ceased in the 19th century. I have noticed that. That's one of the things I noticed about this video is why is he talking about Charles Darwin? Darwin he's been long dead, and I'm sorry to say that so close to his birthday, but yeah, it's true. He's gone. His theory has been greatly modified. So there's been a lot of changes to evolutionary theory since Darwin came up with this bare skeleton of a theory back in the 1850s. So can I turn my volume up? Can I turn my volume up? I don't know. So you guys have not been hearing me all this time. I'm turning it up right now. Is that a little better? Yeah, I should mention that one of the things I struggled with here was before I came on is I just thought, hey, I'll just push a button and I'll go live and I'll just chat away. It turns out that Apple has continually been tweaking their operating system to make it more secure. And one of the things that it did is it made a change so that sound wasn't automatically routed through to the videos that I could make. Oh man, that was a headache. I had to go looking around. I had to find this multi-device adapter, software adapter, and plug that in to make it work. Okay. But I guess in the future I'll work a little harder and figure out what's going on with the volume and why it is so low. Yeah. Okay. Well, sorry. I'll do better next time. All right. Some people are saying the volume is fine. Okay, well, different ears. Yeah, I'll try to compensate in the future for that. Okay, that's, oh gosh, it's been an hour and 10 minutes. I knew this would happen. 12-minute video, and it takes so long to explain all the errors in it. And so we bloated up for over an hour. So forgive me. Anyway, I'll end it here unless people have more questions. Oh, the difference between you and the video. Oh, okay. I will investigate in the future. We'll make it work a little better. But otherwise, I will say thank you for stopping by. And the sound is leaning to, oh, I bet you I know what that is. All right. Yeah. Okay, thank you for saying no worries, but I will try to work on it so that it's not so bad next time. All right, thank you for stopping by. Good night, all. I appreciate this, and I think if I try to do these informal things, I'll be able to squeeze a few more of them in. Oh, a question. The colorful spider posted the other week. Any well, this is an evolution channel. Everything is related to everything else. It is a jumping spider, so it is a salticid, but we'll see. Yeah, you know, the other thing I was thinking of talking about, maybe at some future date, was I've got a good article on color pigments in spiders and how spiders make blues and greens and yellows and oranges and browns. So maybe at a future date we can do that. Okay, again, thank you very much. Talk to you all later. Have a good night.